You know, one of the most commonly asked questions on my most recent videos has been asking Moose to do a little bit of draft talk, early draft talk. So just pump the brakes a little bit. We're not even at free agency, but ask enough and you shall receive. Welcome in, Falcons fans, to Falcons Today by Chat Sports. Today I'm going to go over what Dane Brugler said in his second mock draft. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, who in the hell is Dane Brugler? Now, some real football fans and the more experienced and veteran ones on Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff, they know who Dane Brugler is. But if you don't know who he is, he's the author of the PDF file, The Beast. And The Beast is like a 160-page PDF file, just chock full of every single draft player and prospect that you need to know. So there are a couple of names that come into play when you're talking about the NFL draft, and that's Mel Kiper and Dane Brugler. Well, of course, he does his entire first-round mock draft. Falcons don't have a first-round pick in the 2026 draft, but he did give all of the picks for the second-round draft picks, the guys that don't, of the teams, I should say, that don't have first-round picks, and I believe there are 4 of them. I'll be double-checking that here in just a little bit. But before we get to that, we are very, very close to 51,000. Well, when I say very close, I mean on our way to that. So do me a favor, smash that sub button if you want nonstop off-season content, including free agency news, draft stuff, and the like, so hit that sub button today. Oh, yeah, it was 4. Okay, so the teams without first-round picks. The Indianapolis Colts are one of them after the Sauce Gardner trade. Atlanta Falcons after the James Pierce Jr. Trade. Green Bay Packers after the Micah Parsons trade. And, of course, Jacksonville traded up to get Travis Hunter with the Cleveland Browns. So all 4 of these teams do not have first-round picks. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, nobody cares about the Colts, Packers, or Jaguars. So tell us about who Dane Brugler has the Atlanta Falcons selecting. And with the 48th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Atlanta Falcons select Eli Stowers, tight end from Vandy. Let me just start off by saying this. I love this pick. I'll tell you why coming up here in just a little bit. But let's talk about what Brugler said about Eli Stowers. Considering that he's on an expiring contract, Kyle Pitts picked the right time to have an all-pro season. If the Falcons do not choose to re-sign him or franchise tag him, they can take solace in knowing that the draft is rich with tight end talent, and Stowers will turn heads with his testing. There's no doubt about it. Now, I know that we had a tight end before in Kyle Pitts that blew everybody away with his combine and his testing. He was unbelievable. He was incredible. And Eli Stowers is a little bit like Kyle Pitts, but he's got more traditional tight end values than Kyle Pitts did. If you remember, everybody was talking about how good Kyle Pitts was as a wide receiver, and rightly so. He does have some really nice hands, and when he's on, he is excellent. But Stowers is a little bit more traditional, a little bit more three-point stance, gets his hand in the dirt, and blocks as well. He's got natural soft hands and body control for a tight end, kind of like Kyle Pitts. He's that chess piece on the offensive side of the football that can line up out wide, in the slot, on the line, you name it, he can do it. And he is a little bit raw in his blocking technique and undersized in terms of weight for a tight end. But let me tell you this and ease your mind here. He's a willing blocker, something that I don't think Kyle Pitts is. And when it comes to being undersized, you can always put on more weight. Just eat more food, lift more weights, and get on a training regimen that'll put on a little bit more muscle for you. So let's go to his 2025 stats with Vandy, who notably utilized him in the best way possible. 62 receptions, 769 yards, 4 touchdowns, averaging 12.5 per reception and a long of 67. And by the way, when I tell you that he's undersized, take that with a little bit of a pinch of salt. The dude's 6'4", 235 pounds. Like, he plays like a big wide receiver. He just happens to be a tight end. Now, I would prefer him to be over 250. If you're going to play tight end in the NFL, you should be at about 250 pounds. That's exactly why I believe he's going to go a little bit lower down in the draft. If he was a wide receiver, this dude would be a top 10 pick, period. I just don't think he's got the technique of a lot of wide receivers because he's a little bit too raw and not as technical to be a wide receiver, and he's a little bit too lightweight to be a traditional Gronk or, George Kittle style tight end. But he's got unbelievable yak ability. I was supposed to say yak, not tack. That's my apologies. He's got great yak ability. Unbelievable. His yards after the catch, his ability to shed tacklers is just unmatched on that team. He is excellent with the football in his hands, and I will continue to beat the drum for Eli Stowers. He's one of my favorite prospects in this entire draft. He really is. And remember, I'm a Notre Dame guy, so you might think I've got a bias for Notre Dame players. This guy is unbelievable, and he's an SEC player. I think he's fantastic. This is, by the way, also perfect for running Kevin Stefanski's multiple tight end sets. Tommy Rees, Kevin Stefanski love to run 13-man personnel. Extra tight end sets, wide zone scheme running. If he can learn from Kyle Pitts in the receiving aspect, and if Kevin Stefanski and Tommy Rees can teach him how to be a more technical blocker, this is a very, very good pick. And here's the great news. It's win-win. If you draft Stowers, you get kind of Kyle Pitts light right now. And if you keep Pitts, you can franchise tag him, sign him to a lower-end deal, and then you've got your two tight ends. Boom. I think it's a great pick. I think it's an absolutely great pick. A pick, in my opinion. Would you draft Eli Stowers in the second round? Now, I know there's going to be a lot of people that out there are saying, well, we don't need a tight end, Moose. We need a wide receiver. Well, Kyle Pitts can shift to wide receiver, or Stowers can shift to wide receiver. What you need is another pass catcher for Michael Penix Jr. or Kirk Cousins if he's ending up staying. So if you would draft Stowers, type your D for draft, and if you wouldn't, type your P for pass. Now, that was Dane Brugler's draft pick. That's who Brugler said he thinks the Falcons should draft. But coming up next, I'm going to tell you who Moose would draft. And spoiler alert, he's not on the offensive side of the football. Before we do that, got to tell you about my friends over at PrizePicks. The big game is right around the corner. Very, very excited for it. And let me tell you something right now, fans. If you are one of those people that are like, how do I cash in on the biggest sporting event of the entire year? It is with our friends over at PrizePicks. So never miss a time to be right with PrizePicks because it is always good to be right on PrizePicks. Your lineup takes about 30 seconds to make, by the way. You just pick your player. The more or the less on their stat projections, and you watch your money multiply. Up to 2,000 times your cash this football season on PrizePicks. So do me a favor, download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. You can also cash out your lineup early in new early payouts, which, by the way, super cool because if it gets off to a hot start, you can now cash those out. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It is good to be right. His name is Dontay Coreleone. He is a 6'1", 335-pound nose tackle. He's actually a defensive tackle, but you would shift him inside to nose. He is a senior, and I will say this about Corleone. If you keep up with anything Cincinnati football related, this guy is a stud of a frame of a unit of a human. Holy cow. He is massive. Wide, strong, everything you want from a nose tackle. 6'1", 335, and lightning quick on his first power step off the line of scrimmage, and he's got that intimidating frame. But here's what I will say. He was delegated to a rotational defensive lineman in 2024, heading into the 2025 season. This is not because he got worse as a player. This is because of his medical card. And I'll touch on this here in just a little bit. He's got some blood clot issues. But when evaluating Corleone's profit, by the way, this is from NFL Draft Buzz, his abilities paint the picture, of a player whose impact will depend heavily on the situational usage and developmental patience that a defensive coordinator would provide. His natural power and leverage create immediate disruption against interior running games, yet questions about his pass rush versatility suggest he may initially find himself relegated to early downs, which in a more dynamic rushing defense would handle the third down work. Here's the great news. What's the one area right now the Falcons don't need that much help with? Their pass rush. So you wouldn't even need to have him force himself to be a pass rusher. That part of his game he can develop. So let's go back to the last 4 seasons. 10 games played in 2025 with only 14 tackles, 0 for loss, and 0 sacks. You could look at that and say that's a problem. Because clearly, from 2022 as a freshman, he got better in 2023 and then progressively worse as 2025 came around. But like I told you, he started out as a starter his freshman year. And then in 2023 was still a starter. So his 2 best seasons came as a starter, and then he gets delegated to a rotational because he's had blood clot issues since 2024. Diagnosed with this blood clot issue in 2024 going into his junior season. And of course, they have to delegate him because they're nervous about him playing all these early downs. It seems to be under control now, and that's why he's fallen down to the second round. But I believe this is a diamond in the rough pick. I know what you're going to say, Moose. Why would you want someone with medical injury history? Isn't that what you've been banging on Michael Penix for? Yes, but I also think that taking this guy because of his massive frame, I mean, just look at him. He's gigantic. He's huge. I think bringing him in so that he can be an early down rotational defensive piece, kind of like what Brandon Dorlus was his rookie year, this can only help. And he's already a great run stuffer. He needs to develop his skills as a pass rusher, but we don't even really need him to do that because we've got Jalen Walker, we've got Brandon Dorlus, we've got James Pierce Jr., we've got Caden Ellis, and a bevy of players to rush the passer. Most people don't want injury concerns. I get it. But Corleone's best season came as a freshman when there were no injury concerns. Do you honestly think that he got worse as time went along? There's no shot. There's no shot. He got worse as time went along. You don't go from being 19 years old and starting on a defensive line in college football to being 22 years old and just suddenly not learning how to play. The injuries obviously affected his status as a starting caliber defensive tackle. So, with the injuries under control, having him be an early down rotational nose tackle, I think this is a home run pick in absolutely plugging up that nose tackle. Who is your Falcons second round draft target? Let me know in the comment section, by the way, down below. You should also do your homework on Corleone a little bit. Everybody agrees he's a first-round talent based off of his upside, right? It's just the fact that you saw the steadily declining progression and stat production as time went along. But again, I don't think that's necessarily his fault. So let me know who you would pick in the comment section down below. Help us get to 51,000. We're at 50,070 subs here on the channel. We need 930. If you love nonstop content, I'm going to bring you way more mock drafts, my friends. This is only the beginning. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button. And as always, Falcons fans, rise up and be cool.